Welcome to Collector Chronicles. I have a special treat for you here today. These are all uniforms, U.S. Army uniforms from World War I to World War II. These were actually going to be destroyed. Someone had them and they were going to cut them up and make them into like fashion gloves of all things. And someone intervened and got a hold of all these uniforms and was selling them, and I was able to pick up the whole group. There was a couple that I sold right away, and I was able to make back the money and then some. There was a World War I U.S. Marine Corps jacket and some Japanese World War II trousers. So we're gonna go through these really quick. First thing to say about them is that they're all missing their buttons and they're missing patches as well. And the reason for that is that's how far along they were in the process of being cut up. Again, they were going to be cut up and repurposed for some kind of like fashion gloves. So I do have the buttons for them. This is going to be a matter of, you know, getting them together and then having them sewn. I can't really sew, but having them sewn on. This one right here is a World War I U.S. officer. I do have a video in my channel about collar insignia where I show a few of these. So this one is gabardine or whipcord wool, which is like a finer quality of wool compared to the enlisted men, fuzzier wool. So it's got the one way you can tell that it's officers besides the quality is it has this stripe on this cuff right here. That's summer weight. Also, you can tell because there's no holes to accommodate the collar disc because the officers had pin-on insignia like this. So here's officers' trousers, a little bit different shade. It might not have went with this. And you can see it has the vegetable ivory buttons, watch pocket there. It has buttons on the leg there. These would have had like riding boots. Officers had riding boots, and these are kind of like riding breeches, that style, like equestrian, where it has the side that sticks out like that. That was really popular in the 20s also. Here's a summer weight one. It's more of like a cotton material, and again, it's officers with no holes right there. The buttons would have been these blackened ones like this. They also had these vegetable ivory ones for officers that are really cool looking. It's kind of like an early form of plastic. These what the blackened buttons look like right here. Some of these bigger ones are for the trench coat. So that's the summer weight one. These actually, one thing to mention about the buttons is they came hooked on these rings where you could take them off because these uniforms got soiled and you could actually launder them. So you'd be able to take the buttons all the way off. Here's the cotton summer weight trousers right here, breeches. Now these, instead of buttons, they have the laces, which was pretty standard. See there? And it has reinforcing around the inner calf. These right here look like summer weight breeches, and they are, but what's different about these, they're Boy Scout. These are Boy Scout uniform breeches. The Boy Scouts back in like the 20s and 30s, they look like World War I soldiers basically. In fact, here's a Boy Scout issue hat from like the 30s. The liner's missing, but the liner was falling apart when I got it, and it said Boy Scout in there. So this looks like a World War I U.S. campaign hat. The button for these trousers, the buttons right here, I got some in this little bag. So these are the zinc World War I era and pre-World War I trouser buttons. They say U.S. Army, or sometimes it's U.S. and stars. See, zinc. There was two different sizes, I think, for the fly and then for the top button. You can see where zinc has these characteristics where it'll turn powdery sometimes and get flaky on you, especially if you find them with a metal detector. There's a story about these buttons that's really interesting. I'm going to save for a later video. But then the trouser buttons for the Boy Scout ones, I actually have some of those too. So, as you know, there was Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, and Brownies. So these are Boy Scouts of America. They're made kind of like the Civil War era hatch patent buttons, where it's several pieces crimped over, and then they're enameled. See? Boy Scouts of America. A lot of times the Girl Scout buttons are like a pine green, and Boy Scouts is more of a brown. So here's some early blackened, kind of like the World War I buttons with the fleur-de-lis and the Boy Scout logo, their eagle. And there's one that's not blackened. Okay, so this one right here is a officer grade, officer quality, private tailored uniform, really nice quality, but it's actually enlistedment. If you had the money, you could pay for a tailor to make your jacket for you a little bit higher quality. As you can see, the patches have been removed from these. I have a bunch of patches that I got in the group. Just a matter of determining which jacket they went on. Here's the enlistedman World War I, the fuzzy wool. One thing interesting about these is with the World War I, there was a lot more variation in the shades of wool. It goes from more of a brown to more of a green to a darker green, and it's pretty fuzzy. This one's got a really nice lining in it. So, yeah, fully lined. It's got the inside pockets here that a lot of people don't know are there, and there's actually a lot of times you can find stuff in there. There's the holes I was talking about where the collar disc went on there. And then this had a double hook and eye closure, and then had like this piece of cloth to protect the metal from touching your neck. All right, so there's another World War I enlistedman. Here's a World War I enlistedman trousers. The fuzzy wool, got the reinforcing there, got the laces, the nice brass tips so they wouldn't so they'd last longer. I don't know why they quit doing that. Got your watch pocket up here, and you can see the where the buttons would have went. These are riding breeches. They're like a corduroy type of material, more of like a caramel color. And again, riding breeches were popular, especially like, you know, if you see people out west, the surveyors and different people, the look was to have these riding breeches and then those like leather engineer boots. So these could have been worn by a soldier, by an officer of some type, but they're very well could be civilian. Again, there's more buttons that I got that are the blackened World War I. Some of them have more of the blackening still on, and some of them are, you know, there's an earlier pre-World War I style that didn't have the rim and the lines on it, like so. So, okay, got another World War I. This one's got remains of the campaign chevrons, I believe that is. You'd have your rank, you know, like your sergeant stripes type of deal up there. This one, I had buttons put on it for when I was at a reenactment. This one's got more of like a cloth liner as opposed to the rayon lining. Here's World War I breeches also. Like I said, I had the Japanese breeches that were in here, and I sold those. They look very similar. Different color, more of a grayish olive. Got some mothing on here, got moth-eaten pretty extensively. Now here's a couple of World War II. So the World War II, there was two different sizes. There was a 4-pocket that they started out the war with, which I believe the Army has reintroduced. And then you have the short Ike jacket that was also worn into the Korean War. They had blue ones for the early Air Force. So the Ike jacket has 2 pockets. It's got a belt here. These would have had, this is more of like a dress uniform. There's the belt ramps. My grandpa's uniform, which I have, is like this. 39R size. These would have had buttons like this. Well, this would be for an officer where it has a 3-piece cutout design, but let me try to find a, yeah. They would have been like that there. Shiny ones. And the smaller ones are for the pockets, like so, and the epaulets. So you can see where some of these probably had a unit patch that was removed. Until on one of them, oh, here's World War II issue trousers. Straight leg. I have my grandpa's. These a lot of times got worn after the war. It's just like work clothes and got worn out. This one's got a patch that was, I guess, cut off and they saved it for whatever reason. This might have had like a not sure what patch that, the armored division patches were triangular, but I think they were the point oriented upward. So there's the whole group of them, and like I said, they were going to be destroyed, and it just shows you, makes you wonder how much stuff actually doesn't get saved. And the interesting part of this whole thing is people would say, well, you know, that's terrible that, you know, they were going to be cut up and destroyed. You know, they belong in a museum. Well, here's the funny thing. You might have seen these numbers on here. These are museum numbers. So museums do what they call deascensioning, where they release items that were donated to them. And I've donated to museums before, and they pretty much always make you sign a form that you hand over custody to the museum, and they have complete discretion. So these were in a museum, they were deascensioned, a private party got a hold of them, and they were going to be destroyed. Now, that's not saying that museums are a bad thing. Museums are a good thing, but museums, like private collections, are at the whims of man. So just because something goes in a museum doesn't mean that it's you know, free and clear of ever being destroyed or for whatever reason. So that's kind of an interesting side note. So anyway, I hope you liked the video. Got your little bit of a crash course in uniforms, World War I and World War II U.S. Army uniforms. Thanks for watching.